Land of pure has actually produced the land of pure terror. Pakistan is now Terroristan.
And India has replied to Pakistani Prime Minister's speech at the UN General Assembly. India, in fact, has said that Pakistan has become a geographical synonymous with terror. Calling Pakistan Terroristan, India has once again reiterated that Pakistan must understand that Jammu and Kashmir is and will always remain an integral part of India. India has also said that the world does not definitely need any lesson on democracy and human rights from a country whose own situation is charitably described as a failed state.
To exercise India's do not change reality. Mr. President, it is extraordinary that the state which protected Osama bin Laden and sheltered Mullah Omar should have the gumption to play the victim. By now, all Pakistan's neighbors are painfully familiar with these tactics of creating narratives based on distortions, deception and deceit. This august assembly and the world beyond know that efforts at creating alternative facts do not change reality. Mr. President, in its short history, Pakistan has become a geography synonymous with terror. The quest for a land of pure has actually produced the land of pure terror. Pakistan is now Terroristan, with a flourishing industry producing and exporting global terrorism. Its current state can be gauged from the fact that Hafiz Mohammed Saeed, a leader of the United Nations designated terrorist organization, Lashkar-e-Taiba, is now sought to be legitimized as a leader of a political party. This is a country whose counter-terrorism policy is to mainstream and upstream terrorists by either providing safe havens to global terror leaders in its military towns or protecting them with political careers. None of this can justify Pakistan's avaricious efforts to covet the territories of its neighbors. Insofar as India is concerned, Pakistan must understand that the state of Jammu and Kashmir is and will always remain an integral part of India. However much it scales up cross-border terrorism, it will never succeed in undermining India's territorial integrity. Mr. President, we also heard Pakistan complain about the consequences of its supposed counter-terrorism efforts. Having diverted billions of dollars in international military and development aid towards creating a dangerous infrastructure of terror on its own territory, Pakistan is now speaking of the high cost of its terror industry. The polluter in this case is paying the price. Mr. President, even as terrorists thrive in Pakistan and roam its streets with impunity, we have heard it lecture about the protection of human rights in India. The world does not need lessons on democracy and human rights from a country whose situation is charitably described as a failed state. Mr. President, Terroristan is in fact a territory whose contribution to the globalization of terror is unparalleled. Pakistan can only be counseled to abandon a destructive worldview that has caused grief to the entire world. If it could be persuaded to demonstrate any commitment to civilization, order, and to peace, it may still find some acceptance in the Committee of Nations.
Even Afghanistan came out in support of condemning terror. In its first right to reply, Afghanistan in fact backed India's call to contain terror and supported India's stand against Pakistan. Meanwhile, Pakistan is refusing to heed the growing international condemnation. In its first right to reply, in fact, Pakistan has again blamed India for undermining peace and stability in the region.
Insecurity in our country, Afghanistan, and the claim regarding the presence of safe havens and sanctuaries in Afghanistan. Such reference is a deliberate attempt by the government of Pakistan to divert international attention over Pakistan's long-standing failure to take effective action against various terrorist groups and sanctuaries on its territory. It remains evidently clear to the global community that the propagation of terrorist activities by state and non-state actors in neighboring Pakistan constitutes the main source of insecurity in our country, Afghanistan, and the region. Afghanistan has persistently and consistently sought to address this outstanding issue through various channels, including bilateral and other mechanisms. Nevertheless, efforts to this end have yielded no results.
It is unfortunate that India has chosen to criticize the statement by the Prime Minister of Pakistan, which reflects the sentiments and aspirations of the oppressed and suffering people of Jammu and Kashmir, facing tyranny, repression, and brutalities of illegal and unjust occupation by India. The plight of Kashmiri people at the hands of the Indian occupation forces is being documented by the international community and reputable human rights organizations. Mr. President, the people of Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir look towards the international community, especially the members of the UN Security Council, to deliver on their pledge to hold the free, fair, and impartial plebiscite under the UN auspices, to enable them to decide their future. Let me re-emphasize and reject any misconceptions that India may have wished to create. India is responsible for undermining regional peace and stability.
And let's listen into what political leaders in India had to say on India's befitting reply to Pakistan at the United Nations.
EM herself, in her speech, she did come down heavily on terror groups operating with support system by other countries. It is basically a very strong signal to Pakistan to stop using terrorism as an instrument of their state policy, stop giving sanctuaries to known terrorist outfits that are recognized by the United Nations. And she also called for disruption of terrorist networks and terrorists.
There's no point in talking about Pakistan. They're not going to improve. They are openly keeping Dawood Ibrahim. They are openly patronizing Hafiz Saeed and Muhammad Azhar. I mean, there is no limit, and Lashkar-e-Toiba is roaming here. Pakistani flags are being disputed. Our currency is being counterfeited. We are appearing like an important country. We are not an important country. We are capable of breaking Pakistan into four. So rather than speak about Pakistan in the UN General Assembly, even if it's a small part of your speech, the media is going to only give Pakistan, because the whole world is keen to make us equated. They don't want another third pole to emerge in the world. So they want to make India and Pakistan as equal countries. We are not equal countries. But we, by speaking about them, make it so. My urgent plea to the Prime Minister is, please put a ban on talking about Pakistan in international forums.
There is enough evidence that Pakistan is promoting terrorism, particularly in Indian continent, Indian territory, and therefore Pakistan should be labelled as a terrorist state. Our efforts are gradually paying dividends, and I think sooner than later Pakistan will have to face the wrath of the whole world.
And Pakistan has racked up Kashmir at the United Nations once again. Making his maiden address at the United Nations General Assembly, the Pakistani Prime Minister, Shahid Abbasi, also called for resumption of dialogue with India on all issues, including Kashmir. Abbasi demanded the international investigation into alleged rights violation and the appointment of a special envoy for Jammu and Kashmir. Pakistan mentioned Kashmir a word in his speech at least 17 times.
India has responded with massive and indiscriminate force to suppress the Kashmiris, shooting indiscriminately at children, women and youth. Hundreds of innocent Kashmiris have been killed or injured. Shotgun pellets have blinded and maimed thousands of Kashmiris, including children. Let me reiterate, Pakistan remains open to resuming a comprehensive dialogue with India to address all outstanding issues, especially Jammu and Kashmir, and discuss measures to maintain peace and security.
But cornered on terror, Prime Minister of Pakistan Abbasi said it is not correct to blame Pakistan for military and political stalemate in Afghanistan, and asserted also that his will not be anyone's scapegoat. Reacting to comments on Pakistan being a safe haven for terrorism, he also claimed that the Taliban's safe havens are located not in Pakistan but in large tracts of territory controlled by the Taliban in Afghanistan.
ये इंटरेक्शन यूएस एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन से है और हमने अपना मौका बड़े वाज़ेह तरीके से रखा है कि इंडिया की पॉलिटिकल या मिलिट्री इन्वॉल्वमेंट अफगानिस्तान में हमें कबूल नहीं है.
Having suffered and sacrificed so much due to our role in the global counter-terrorism campaign, it is especially galling for Pakistan to be blamed for the military or political stalemate in Afghanistan. We are not prepared to be anyone's scapegoat. Taliban safe havens are located not in Pakistan but in the large tracts of territory controlled by the Taliban in Afghanistan.
And our bureau chief in Islamabad, Taha Siddiqui, is joining us live for more on this Pakistani Prime Minister's speech. Taha, thank you for joining us. What more can you tell us about Pakistani Prime Minister's address highlighting Kashmir?
Well, the Pakistani PM, before he was going to this UNGA, the General Assembly debate, he had already said that he would be talking about the Kashmir issue. The foreign minister briefed journalists in Pakistan, in which he said their main agenda of going to the UNGA is to raise the issue of Kashmir on an international forum. We've seen that the Pakistani government authorities have been doing this before. They've been doing this. They did this last year also when Nawaz Sharif, the Pakistani Prime Minister at that time, went there, and at that time he mentioned even some Kashmir, youth leaders like Burhan Wani was mentioned, and then he was criticized a lot by the Indian government. Right. So definitely this is Pakistan's main agenda whenever it goes to the international forums, whenever it goes abroad. Right. It wants to talk about the Kashmir issue.
And Taha, how is India's stance on terrorism condemning Pakistan being reported in the country's media?
Well, we do know that India has been talking about this also, that there is terrorism emanating from Pakistan on a global level. We saw the similar sort of statements coming out of BRICS. We've seen earlier on, even with the Trump sort of statement and policy on Afghanistan, Afghanistan, it was about safe havens in Pakistan, and because of which, Pakistan has come under a lot of, terrorism, under a lot of pressure and under a lot of criticism. But is it being reported here? I mean, with Sushma Swaraj's statement, for example, or India's take on Pakistan's terrorism, it doesn't really make it to the Pakistani mainstream media. There is a lot of self-censorship that is exercised. The Pakistani media follows the narrative of the state. So in that sense, we do not really see any reporting on that front. Instead, Pakistan focuses on other things. Pakistani media focuses on what is happening in the Indian administered Kashmir. Pakistan focuses on how there are, what they call the Indian atrocities on the other side of Kashmir, and and sort of look away from all what is happening on Pakistani soil when it comes to these militant groups which operate on the Pakistani soil.
And Taha, what about, the fact, is there a realization that Pakistan needs to change its policy?
Well, there is a realization in Pakistan with regards to the pressures that Pakistan has been going through, and because of the pressures Pakistan has been through, after the last statement by the foreign minister of saying that we should put our own house in order was sort of indicating that. He also said that before leaving for China, he also said that we should not try the patience of our friends. Then the defense minister endorsed that statement. The Pakistani Prime Minister endorsed that statement, saying that we need to put our house in order and we need to. And then the foreign minister even said that we should stop embarrassing ourselves internationally because of these groups that operate in Pakistan. So definitely there is a realization on the civilian front. Now, whether or not this realization will translate into policy change, that's debatable because of the fact that the military does not, see the same way, see it in the same manner. The policy of the military is very different. When the army chief on 6th of September, Defense Day, he made a speech. He said the world needs to do more, and Pakistan has done enough. So when the army chief is saying that, it shows that Pakistan is not going to budge from its policy of this, the security policy and this security prism that they see the regional sort of alliances through.
For a land of pure has actually produced the land of pure terror. Pakistan is now Terroristan.